They call it the Devil's Highway for a reason. People vanish, engines die without warning, and sometimes something follows you that isn't alive. These are the four most terrifying encounters ever reported on America's most cursed stretch of road, Route 666. They say Route 666 looks different after midnight. Not darker, just emptier. As if the world ends right where your headlights stop. That's exactly how it felt the night I drove it alone, cutting across the New Mexico border on my way home. I wasn't scared at first. I'd taken the route before. It was an hour of straight emptiness. A road so quiet you hear your own breath over the engine. The night was painfully still. No wind, no bugs hitting the windshield. No other cars, just the rhythmic hum of tires on ancient asphalt. I was hungry and tired but pushing through. The gas station I planned to stop at was 40 miles ahead. I kept glancing in the mirror and seeing nothing but darkness. So when I finally saw headlights appear behind me, I actually felt relieved. It meant there was at least one other human soul awake on this cursed highway. But that relief didn't last long. The headlights grew closer, fast, too fast. Within seconds, the vehicle was so close I could barely see its grille. I changed lanes. It changed lanes. I sped up. It sped up. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I was going almost 90 mph on a straight empty road, yet the truck behind me pushed harder, as if trying to crawl into my back seat. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. The truck flashed its lights at me, once, twice, then again and again until the entire highway pulsed white. The horn blared, long and furious. I didn't understand. Was he drunk? Angry? Trying to warn me? My mind raced for an explanation. Any explanation that didn't involve the stories. I'd heard all my life about this place. Then he hit me. A hard jolt slammed through my car, sending fear shooting down my spine. My vehicle fishtailed, tires screaming across the old pavement. I fought the wheel with both hands, gasping for air. He rammed me again, harder, and for the first time, I truly sensed it. This wasn't just aggression. It was intentional. I stomped the accelerator. My engine roared. The truck matched me speed for speed. His headlights glared like two burning suns behind me. Panic turned thick inside my chest. I swerved to the left shoulder, hoping he'd pass, but instead he followed, drifting closer and closer until I could almost hear the sound of metal brushing metal. Then suddenly something strange happened. His headlights flickered and vanished. Not dimmed, not turned off. Vanished. Instantly, completely. The road behind me was empty again. The desert ahead swallowed the silence. My heart thrashed against my ribs as I stared into the mirror over and over. Nothing, not a trace of a vehicle. No skid marks, no dust cloud, no engine, no lights. It was as if the truck had never existed at all. I drove the rest of that highway with trembling hands and dry breath. When I reached a reservation town, I stopped at a gas station and stumbled inside. The old Navajo woman behind the counter looked at me like she already understood. "You saw it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She nodded slowly. "That chasing truck. It's been following travelers since before I was born. Some say it's a spirit that died on this road. Some say it's something worse." Her eyes narrowed. "Just be grateful it didn't follow you off the highway. Many aren't so lucky." That night I learned something about Route 666. Sometimes the things chasing you aren't alive at all. But what happened on mile marker 47 wasn't the only encounter reported that year. Just a few weeks later, another driver would see something far worse, something that didn't chase its victims. It waited for them. There are two kinds of fear on Route 666, the kind that chases you, and the kind that waits for you to come close. My story is about the second kind. I used to drive nights delivering medical supplies between Gallup and Shiprock. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept me out of crowded city noise. I liked the silence. Or at least I used to. The night everything changed was a moonless Thursday. The sky so dark it looked heavy, like a lid pressed over the desert. Even my headlights felt weaker than normal. Their glow swallowed before it could touch the road. Around 1 a.m., I was halfway down the long, empty stretch known as the Black Mile, the darkest portion of the Devil's Highway, when I saw him. A lone figure walking on the shoulder. Normally I wouldn't stop. Everyone local knows the stories, the burnt man, the ghostly soldier, the disappearing girl who asks for a lift then vanishes mid-ride. But something about this man made my foot lift from the pedal. He wasn't limping or waving or stumbling like someone in trouble. He was walking at a steady pace, calm, almost peaceful, as if the desert night belonged to him. I slowed down just enough to get a better look. He was tall, wearing a faded denim jacket and torn jeans. Nothing unusual there. But his posture, it was stiff, too upright, like a mannequin balanced perfectly on the edge of the asphalt. And then he turned. Every part of me froze. There was no face, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, just smooth, pale skin stretching from hairline to jaw. I didn't scream. I didn't breathe. For 3 long seconds, I simply stared, convinced my brain was lying to me, distorting shadows and exhaustion into nightmares. But then he lifted a hand, slowly, deliberately, and reached toward my windshield. That snapped me awake. I hit the gas so hard my tires screeched. My truck lurched forward, swaying as the desert wind caught it. But only a few seconds passed before my rearview mirror began to betray me. He was still there. Not behind me, alongside me, running. At first, I thought my mind was still broken. No one could run that fast. I was pushing 60, then 70. But the figure glided beside the road like he weighed nothing, like gravity didn't apply to him. His denim jacket didn't flap. His legs didn't pump the way a human runs. They moved in stiff, unnatural motions, like he was being pulled by invisible strings. My chest tightened. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I kept accelerating until the speedometer brushed 80, the truck rattling violently, and then I saw him vanish into the dark. I didn't relax. I'd heard enough stories to know vanishing didn't mean gone. And sure enough, 10 seconds later, my headlights caught something up ahead. Him, standing in the middle of the road, waiting, his faceless head tilted slightly like he was listening for my thoughts. I slammed both feet onto the brake. My truck fishtailed wildly, screeching across the asphalt. By the time I stopped, I was less than 30 feet from him. The desert was silent except for the soft ticking of my cooling engine. He didn't move. He didn't turn. He didn't breathe. He simply existed in front of me like a mistaken reality. I fumbled for my phone. But my hands were shaking so violently I dropped it between the seat. Panic clawed up my throat. I stared at the figure, half certain the moment I blinked he would be inches from my window. Then something changed. His head twitched. Just once. Barely a fraction of an inch. But enough to tell me he wasn't frozen. He was choosing not to move. That was somehow worse. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. A moment later, his arm lifted again, not reaching toward me this time, but pointing. Straight ahead, down the endless black highway, as if telling me to go. I didn't question it. I didn't think. I jammed the transmission into drive and pressed the pedal, swerving around him so close I thought I'd clip him. But as the truck accelerated, I looked into the mirror again. He was gone. Not behind me. Not beside the road. Not anywhere. Just gone. The next 20 miles felt like a lifetime. My body didn't stop trembling until I saw the glow of Shiprock's streetlights. When I reached the delivery center, I sat in the parking lot for nearly 10 minutes trying to steady my breathing. My supervisor saw me through the window and came out, confused, asking if I was sick. He froze when he saw my face. "You saw something, didn't you?" he whispered. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't even understand what I'd seen. He exhaled softly, looking out toward the desert. Some people see lights. Some hear voices. Some catch shadows in their mirrors. But the ones who see the faceless hitchhiker? He shook his head. They never drive that road again. I didn't understand why his voice cracked when he said that. Then he added, barely audible, "My brother saw him too, 20 years ago." "What happened to him?" I asked. The supervisor swallowed, eyes fixed on the black horizon. "He didn't take the hint," he said. "He didn't keep driving. Since that night, I've avoided Route 66 entirely. I don't care if it adds 2 hours to my drive. I don't care if fuel costs more, because whatever that thing was, whatever walks that highway at night, it wasn't human. And if it ever looks at you without a face, you'll understand why nobody talks about what happens next. If the faceless hitchhiker proved that the devil's highway can follow you, the next story shows the opposite. Sometimes the road doesn't move at all. Sometimes it stands perfectly still and lets you come to her. Most people who talk about the devil's highway mention the phantom, truck, or the faceless hitchhiker, but very few speak about the girl in the red dress. Maybe because the people who see her don't stay around long enough to tell the whole story. My name is Leah. I was driving alone that night, heading from Farmington to Monticello after visiting my cousin. It was past midnight, and I was already irritated with myself for taking Route 491 instead of the safer detour. But I told myself the extra 2 hours weren't worth it. I'd driven this road before. I wasn't superstitious. I thought fear was just a story people told to keep kids indoors. That arrogance didn't last long. I remember the sky was unusually clear, stars burning bright like tiny fires scattered across black velvet. The desert was completely silent. The kind of silence so deep you hear your heartbeat tapping in your ears. I rolled down my window for air, hoping it would keep me awake. That's when I smelled something strange, like old perfume, faint and powdery, drifting in from the dark. I rolled the window back up. As I crossed mile marker 89, I saw her. A girl standing on the shoulder of the road. At first, I didn't even register what I was seeing. She looked like a splash of color someone had dropped onto a blank canvas. Bright red dress, thin legs, long dark hair hanging straight down as if it was wet. She didn't move. Not an inch. And though she wasn't facing me, something about her posture felt wrong. Her arms hung too straight, her head too still, her shadow too long for someone that small. My stomach tightened. Instinct told me to keep driving. But something else, curiosity, guilt, or plain stupidity, made me slow down. The closer I got, the stranger she appeared. Her dress fluttered slightly in the breeze, but her hair didn't. Her feet were bare, toes sunk slightly into the dirt, pointed not outward like someone waiting, but inward, like she had just stepped out of a grave. I rolled to a crawl, my headlights washing over her. She turned. Not slowly, not naturally, like a puppet pulled by an invisible string. Her head snapped toward my car. Her face was wrong, not faceless like the hitchhiker, not deformed, just wrong in a way that made my breath stop, like my eyes weren't supposed to look at it. Her features didn't align with the light. Her smile was too wide, stretching farther than flesh should allow. And her eyes weren't reflecting the headlights. They were swallowing them. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal. My car shot forward, tires spinning dust behind me. My heart was pounding fast enough to hurt. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went pale. I didn't check the mirror at first. I didn't want to. But after a full minute of driving, I finally did. She was there, standing dead center in the road, as if I had never passed her at all. My breath hitched. Everything in me stiffened as my mind scrambled for logic. Had I hallucinated the first sighting? Was I exhausted? But deep down I knew the truth. She wasn't human. She wasn't alive. She wasn't supposed to exist. I swallowed, eyes locked on the mirror. She was getting closer. No footsteps. No running. No movement. Just closer, like the darkness was pulling her toward me. I pushed the gas pedal harder, whispering under my breath, "Please, please stop." But the desert swallowed my words. A coldness filled the car then, sharp and sudden, like winter had crawled into my bones. My breath fogged the windshield from the inside. My hands shook uncontrollably. I reached for the heater out of instinct, but the lights on the dashboard flickered and went out. Every dial dropped to 0. The car didn't stall. It died. I coasted in silence, praying momentum would carry me far enough away from where she stood. But the car slowed, slower, slower, until it stopped completely in the middle of the highway of the devil. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab my phone. There was no signal, not even one bar. The road behind me was empty. She wasn't there. For a breath, I thought I might cry in relief. Then, a soft tapping on the rear window. Once, twice, 3 times. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't swallow. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My entire body went rigid as something scraped down the glass. Slow, deliberate, like a fingernail dragging across a coffin. Then her voice. Soft, childlike. "Close! Are you lost?" I squeezed my eyes shut, tears slipping out. I didn't answer. I didn't look. I just prayed silently, clutching the steering wheel like it was the last solid thing in the world. The tapping stopped. Silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then the voice again, whispering right behind my ear inside the car. "Look at me." I screamed. I twisted the key again and again. Nothing. But on the fourth try, the engine roared back to life in a violent cough. I slammed the accelerator so hard I felt the car leap forward. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I didn't look back, not once. When I reached the next town, I parked under bright gas station lights and sobbed until my throat burned. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't drive home. I waited until sunrise stained the desert gold before I dared speak to anyone. When I told a Navajo mechanic what I'd seen, he didn't laugh. He didn't question. He just stared at me with quiet pity. "You saw the red dress?" He said it softly, like it hurt him to say it. "She doesn't chase people who see her." He paused, eyes dark and heavy. "She chases the ones who notice her." I haven't driven Route 666 since, and I never will again, because sometimes the darkness doesn't chase you. Sometimes it waits for you to slow down, and sometimes it wears red. But the girl in the red dress was only a fragment of what haunts this stretch of desert. Because while lone spirits terrify drivers, nothing compares to what entire convoys of the dead bring with them. People talk about single ghosts on Route 666. A man, a woman, a creature, a shadow. But the thing that almost killed me wasn't one spirit. It was many. A convoy. A long, silent procession of trucks that don't belong to this decade or this world. My name is Aaron. I've been a trucker for 15 years, and I've seen every kind of highway nightmare you can imagine. Drunk drivers, tire blowouts, coyotes tearing at roadkill, strange lights that vanish when you blink. None of that prepared me for what I saw last winter on the Devil's Highway. It was just past 2 a.m., the hour when your mind starts drifting, and the world outside turns heavy with shadows. I had been hauling refrigerator units from Flagstaff to Durango. I'd chosen Route 491 because it shaved off 40 minutes, and honestly, I didn't believe the rumors. I wasn't a rookie. I didn't scare easy. Snow drifted across the road in thin white sheets, carried by a breathless wind. The desert was pale under the moon, empty as a forgotten world. Radio static crackled every few minutes, cutting through the silence like an old whisper. My CB had been acting weird all night, voices overlapping, channels failing, sudden screeches that made me flinch. I blamed the storm, but somewhere around mile marker 113, everything changed. My headlights flickered. Just once, like someone had briefly passed in front of them. Then the CB radio hummed, low and warbling, before a voice, distant, crackling, ancient, broke through. "You clear the lane?" I froze. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. I turned the volume down, thinking I'd caught some stray chatter from a distant trucker, but the voice came again. "The convoy coming through." "Convoy? On Route 491? At 2 a.m.? There wasn't another vehicle for 50 miles in any direction. I knew because I'd been counting the empty markers to stay awake. I leaned forward, scanning the horizon. That's when I saw them. Headlights. Dozens of them. Tiny at first, pinpricks of yellow light stretched across the far end of the road. They didn't look like modern LEDs. They were warm, round, flickering like old halogen bulbs. The line stretched too long to make sense. At least 20 trucks, maybe more, moving in perfect formation. No sways, no staggering, no variation in speed. Just a straight, unnatural line of machines gliding across the desert. I slowed, confused, squinting through the windshield. As they drew closer, my stomach tightened. The trucks were old. Not old like 20 years. Old like pre-war. Rust-eaten semis with rounded grills and cracked windshields. Their headlights buzzed like dying fireflies. Their front plates were blackened, unreadable. Many had no visible drivers. The cabs were pitch dark, empty as abandoned houses. The air around me thickened, like the desert had stopped breathing. My CB crackled again. "Stay off the road." The voice sounded urgent now, trembling like static caught in a storm. I pulled onto the right shoulder, heart pounding. The convoy thundered toward me. Except thundering was the wrong word. They made no sound. Not the rumble of engines, not the whine of tires, not even the whisper of wind, just silence. Broken only by the faint hum of electricity in the air. One truck passed, missing my mirror by inches. The next followed with the same deadly precision. Then another. And another. Their beams washed over my face, cold and colorless, as if the light itself was sick. My skin crawled. I reached for my camera, wanting proof. But my phone screen stayed black no matter how hard I pressed the button. It wouldn't turn on. My dashboard lights were failing too, glowing faintly, then fading like dying stars. The fourth truck passed, then the fifth, then the sixth. By the 10th, something changed. The last truck began to slow. Not naturally, slow, unnatural, deliberate, like a predator noticing movement. Its brakes didn't squeal. Its engine didn't groan. It simply glided to a stop beside my truck. I stared at the cab, at its shattered windshield, at the dark interior that looked bottomless. Then something moved inside it. A shape, a figure, slumped at first, then rising slowly, vertebra by vertebra, until it sat upright in the driver's seat. My blood went cold. The thing turned its head toward me. It didn't have a face, just hollow darkness where features should have been, so deep it looked like it was swallowing the world behind it. My throat tightened painfully as cold seeped through the glass. Frost crawled across my windshield like fingers dragging from the outside. I tried to start my truck. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. The figure inside the phantom semi leaned closer, its featureless void pressing toward the glass. Something like a voice, too soft to be sound, too cold to be breath, brushed the air inside my cab. Get off. The road? My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the keys. I twisted the ignition again. Nothing. Again, nothing. The figure inside the old truck tilted its head. I could feel it staring despite having no eyes. Again, my engine roared to life. I slammed the gear shift and tore away from the shoulder, gravel spitting behind me. My trailer fishtailed, but I kept control, speeding into the snow-bitten darkness as fast as my truck could handle. My mirror showed the convoy fading behind me, dissolving into the desert like smoke blown away by wind. But the last truck, the one with the faceless driver, didn't move. It stayed there, watching. I didn't breathe again until the lights of Shiprock appeared over the horizon. I drove straight through town and didn't stop until I reached a crowded diner. Parking under the brightest lights I could find, an older trucker approached me as I stumbled out, pale and shaking. "You look like you saw the convoy," he said quietly. I couldn't even respond. I just nodded, trembling. He rested a hand on my shoulder. "You're lucky," he whispered. "If it stops beside you, and you don't leave fast, you become part of it." I didn't ask what he meant. Some truths are better left buried in the desert. I quit night routes after that, because the Devil's Highway doesn't just have ghosts. It has routes for the dead, and if you cross paths with the convoy, they try to take you with them. 4 stories. 4 survivors. 1 highway. And countless others who never made it off Route 6666 to share what they saw. Because some roads aren't meant to take you home. They're meant to keep you.